The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Today on Leadership Lunch, we're going to be talking about one-on-ones, and in particular 3 techniques you can use immediately to get more business out of your business networking. Welcome everyone to the webinar. My name is Andrew Winnig, and just a couple of administrative things as we get started. There are a bunch of people on the call, so I've got people in mute mode. If you can hear me now and see my screen, if you could please find a way on your control panel you can raise your hand. So what I'd like to ask you to do now is raise your hand if you can hear me, just so I can make sure the technology is working out okay. Excellent, thank you. So once again, we're in mute mode, so if you want to get in touch with me, you have a chat window. You can type questions into the chat, and I will be sure to answer any questions either live on the air here or afterwards. I will follow up with you afterwards if I don't get to it live. So that's the way to get in touch with me with a question. We have a couple more people logging on now, so as everyone logs on, I'd like to launch the first poll. Please let me know how many networking events you attend in a given week. It's kind of the average number of events you attend per week. Excellent, good. It looks like people are pretty active, which is excellent. So in our schools today, there's a special word we use when we talk about teamwork. We call teamwork cheating. It's cheating. If they catch you working together on tests or problem sets or exams, you get in trouble and they throw you out. So it's no wonder when people get out into the world, when salespeople get out into the world and are told to develop relationships and build trust, they don't know where to start. So people end up hitting the streets and hitting the phones, and it generates an awful lot of frustration. I'm very excited here today. We're going to be talking about a better way. It's called being a trusted advisor. I was down at Yale University recently giving a talk, and more than 3/4 of the way through my presentation, my business communications for business networking talk, a brave young man raised his hand and said, Mr. Winnig, I just have a question for you. What's business networking? And it's a great question because it's definitely not something that we get taught in the schools, what the purpose of business networking is. And what I told him is that business networking, when you're out in the business world, you need to know who you can trust. You need to know who you can work with. And business networking is a way of figuring this out, of interacting with people and finding out which people can deliver what they say they can deliver, which people are trustworthy. And so that's what we're really talking about today. We're talking about business networking and a way of becoming a trusted advisor. And the trusted advisor is really a buzzword that's being thrown around now. It's always your goal to be a trusted advisor. There are 2 things with that I found frustrating. One was that nobody could really ever tell me the path to becoming a trusted advisor. You're supposed to be a trusted advisor, but how do you build that trust? How do you become that sort of person? The second thing is that when you talk about being a trusted advisor, the piece of being a trusted advisor that most people miss out on is that in order to be a trusted advisor, you need to know other trusted advisors, right? It's one thing to be a trusted advisor in your area of expertise. But what we're really talking about from business networking when you're going to be a trusted advisor is you want to know about things outside of your expertise as well. That's how you get more referrals. That's how you get more people coming to you, that they know that they can count on you to find people for them no matter what they're thinking about. So it's really a 2-sided coin, this trusted advisor. In order to be a trusted advisor, you need to know other trusted advisors, and other trusted advisors need to know and trust you. And so what we're going to be talking about today, the one-on-one, is really a way of developing that. As you can see there on the screen, there are 5 skills to being a trusted advisor. I've got a question in. Can we get an overview of the 5 skills? Today we're actually going to be focusing on the one-on-one skill, the 3rd skill there. If you want the other skills, there's an archive. I recommend you go to the leadershiplunchwebinars.com, and you can go into the archive and listen to the overview of becoming a trusted advisor. That gives a nice overview of everything that we do in the trusted advisor sphere. So once again, today what we're going to be working on is the 3rd skill, how to do a one-on-one. And the question that always comes up when you're talking about this is, what is a one-on-one, right? We can think about one-on-one coaching. We can think about basketball. It means things in basketball. We can think of one-on-one time, fishing, father and son, mother and daughter, one-on-one time, having a nice conversation. From the business networking point of view, when I think about a one-on-one, what I'm really thinking about is sitting down for coffee with someone that you met at a business networking event. And the cool thing about this is that it gives us kind of a framework for thinking about business networking and thinking about what our goal is going to be when we're out there meeting people. One of the goals is to find people to have a one-on-one with. And again, we're going to talk about 3 techniques in a couple of minutes that can help make this process much easier for you. So once again, when we think about, when I think about a one-on-one in the business networking sense, I'm really thinking about sitting down to get to know somebody who you met at a business networking event. And so what I'd like to do now is launch the second poll and ask you how many one-on-ones you had last week. So how many times did you sit down for coffee to network with someone last week? Excellent. Once again, looks like people are pretty active with one-on-ones. That is perfect. So that's the context for what we're going to be doing today. So what we're going to do today, we already put things in context of the trusted advisor. We're going to be talking about the third skill. I want to talk a little bit about my story, how I went from not knowing anything about sales to being a cold call salesman to doing trusted advisor selling, and the skills that I learned along the way and how I learned them specifically about the one-on-one. Then we're going to talk about our 3 practical strategies, things that you can use today to start getting more business out of your business networking. And at the very end, after we've wrapped up and everything, I like to give kind of a wrap-up thing. And there's a particular trap that a lot of people fall into with one-on-ones. And so at the very end, I'm going to talk about the trap and talk about a specific way that you can avoid that trap. If there's a trap that really stalls people where they are doing business development, and there's no reason to stall there. As long as you know that it's a trap, you can actually get around it very easily. So that's at the very end, we'll be talking about the trap. So let's continue with Andy's story. So I built my first computer for myself when I was 13 years old. Yes, I am that much of a geek. And yes, I had that little background in sales. I didn't know anything about sales. I had a 10-year career in computers, which ended with a web startup. I was the 8th guy in. We built it up to 120 people, shrank it back down to 20, and then locked the doors. It took about 18 months. And over the course of that time, we had made 0 sales. And while that's not really fair, because we had received 1 check, Real Networks, the company that does Real Player, sent us a check for $100,000. But if you do a little bit of quick math, you have 120 engineers and $100,000. I think we figured out that the check barely covered the party that we threw to celebrate receiving the check. So over the course of those 18 months, we made 0 sales. And I kind of vowed to myself that I would never again be in the position where I depended on someone else to make sales. I wanted to learn how to make sales. And so I started up with this franchise company. I bought it on a franchise, Fish Window Cleaning, and hit the streets cold call selling. And the turning point for me related to being a trusted advisor and related especially to one-on-ones came a couple of years later. 8 years ago I started the franchise, and 2 years after that I had hired a manager so I didn't have to be at the business every morning. And I had this idea in my head, again, in school nobody mentions that business networking, what it's about, but I had in my head that business networking might be a way of growing my business without having to cold call every day, right? It might be a way of getting referrals. I kind of had this in my head. And the turning point happened one day. I was in Cambridge, and I walked into the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce. And, of course, my goal was to sell them on window cleaning, but they ended up selling me on a chamber membership. And what started from there was my journey towards learning these 5 skills, learning the skills of connecting with people and becoming a trusted advisor. And the cool thing about it is that last month I did 14 presentations, signed up 10 new customers, 0 cold calling. It was all through relationships that I've been building over the past couple of years. And my sincere hope is that it doesn't take you that long to do that. A lot of the reason that I do these webinars, a lot of the reason that I do these teachings are to teach you the skills so that you can get to this point faster, so you can know what the skills are, know how to learn them and practice them, and then you can get to this referral selling a little bit faster. So as part of the chamber, I was part of one of these business development groups. And back at the time, I thought the job was to show up for the meetings, right? You show up for the meetings every month, and you're doing your job. But finally, we got to the point that we needed to do one-on-ones. And, one-on-ones had always confused me because I didn't see why I would sit down with someone who I didn't want to buy what they had, or whether they didn't want to buy what I had. Like, I couldn't see why I would sit down with someone other than if there was some, obvious connection. But Tom Vance, who was running the business development groups, passed around a clay pot one meeting, said throw your business card in, you had to pick out another card. And so you had to have a one-on-one with 2 people. You pick someone's card and someone picked your card. So you ended up having 2 one-on-ones. And what started from there was one of the most powerful experiences I've ever had in sales. As I got to know people, as I sat down for one-on-ones, one one-on-one I had turned into my insurance agent. And I have lots of one-on-ones with insurance agents, but this one blew me away enough. She had enough information, enough good information for my particular situation that she was the natural choice for doing that. I've had other one-on-ones that turned into, ski trips that ended up into being more business. So you just never know where these things are going. But the one-on-one, it's such a well-kept secret in the world that if you're part of a business networking group, the real value in the group is sitting down with the people one-on-one. It's not going to the monthly meetings. I mean, you want to do that, but it's really about having these one-on-ones. And so the clay pot was the beginning of this for me, that it forced us to kind of, it made it okay for us to say, hey, we're supposed to have a one-on-one, let's go ahead and schedule that. We sat down and we had them, and magical things started to happen. The group really started to take off in terms of helping refer opportunities to each other. And so over the course of these several years, I've been working on these skills and learning these skills, and now I teach these skills as well as a way of helping other people build their businesses. So, and one of the cool things about a one-on-one, if you meet with people who aren't as sophisticated in business networking, they may not know what the one-on-one is. And so one thing I really like to do when I'm setting this up is set expectations. I like to sit down for you with a one-on-one. Where we can, I want to learn more about your business and see how we can help each other grow our businesses, right? That to me is really the prospect of it. If you didn't catch that, I'd like to sit down with you for a one-on-one. I want to learn more about your business and find out how we can help each other grow each other's businesses. That's really the way of setting up this whole one-on-one. So those are the skills. And I got a good question. Oh, that's a good question. So what if someone just wants to sell? Right. I mean, I think we've all run into these sorts of people at business networking events, right? They just want to talk about themselves. They're just trying to sell you whatever it is. They're very transactional, just trying to sell you whatever it is. And, I don't like to rule anybody out. Sometimes people think that the goal of a networking event is to do sales, and so, they have something. They might have something interesting to say, but they're just not saying it correctly. So, you never know who you might want to sit down with. Certainly, people who are only interested in the sale won't be so interested in the one-on-one, and it'll be harder to connect with them. And I think part of the business networking, at any networking event, you would not expect to connect with everybody in the room. But part of the goal of business networking is to see what sort of connections start to happen, and then nurture them as they grow. Right? That's really what we'll be talking about today. Kind of how you get to the one-on-one, and then once you've had the one-on-one, how you move that forward into this sort of trusted advisor relationship. How you build that trust. And so so a good question. Thank you. Feel free to keep the questions coming. That's really excellent. So another good question. A good question. So let's talk about the first skill. So the first skill we're going to learn today is called Pick 3. And the whole thing about Pick 3 is that it helps drive what the purpose, what your goal is at a business networking event, and how you get into one-on-ones. And what I like to do when I go to a business networking event is that my goal is to find 3 people that I'd like to continue a conversation with. And I must say that I spent my early years at business networking events collecting business cards. I thought the goal was to collect all the business cards you could. You bring them home, you follow up with them. That's how you kind of create. That's how you create business, right? That's how you get things moving. And I really don't. That's what a lot of people think, and you can see those people at the networking events running around collecting cards, handing out their cards. And I really take a different approach now. A lot of the work I do is teaching people elevator pitches. And so what happens is you go to a networking event, and you get to the networking event, and you use your elevator pitch to start conversations with people. And there's more information about this at elevatorpitchworkshops.com if you want to learn more about that. That's a whole other area. But so the way this all fits together is that you go to a business networking event, and you use your elevator pitch. And the elevator pitch starts some sort of conversation with someone. It may or may not have to do with your business, but you're getting into conversation with someone about something that's interesting to both of you. And over the course of the evening, you'll probably run into a couple of people. Most of those conversations won't really go anywhere. You'll have a conversation, it kind of ends, you can move on. But there'll be a couple of conversations that will actually go somewhere. And that's the kind of place where you can take someone's business cards and, hey, I'd like to continue this conversation over coffee. Right? There's a way of kind of continuing the conversation. And so the idea is that you get back from your business networking event, and you look at the cards you had, and you kind of pick 3 people that you'd like to follow up with. And oops, someone's jumping ahead of me. Another question. What do you do with the other cards? Yeah, well, honestly, I don't actually bring many cards back from a business networking event because I'm really collecting. I'm just asking people for their card if I think there's something more there. And you know what? There's no judgment in it, right? I mean, there's some people that I've seen at networking events for years, and then all of a sudden there's something to talk to them about. So there's a lot of timing involved with it, as well as who they are and what they have to offer. So it's really just about kind of noticing who you're connecting with that evening and where you would follow up with them. And so the pick three is just that you get your business cards home and you pick three of them and you follow up with them. And in terms of the specific question, what do you do with the rest of the business cards? I recycle them, right? I throw them out, because if any business card I have that doesn't mean anything to me when I get back from the event isn't going to mean something to me 3 months from now, right? I mean, if I'm going to connect with that person, I'll connect with them again. I don't really need their business card to do that, right? I'm more likely to meet with them face-to-face and get our elevator pitches going and move on from there. So I don't like to keep a whole bunch of business cards. I used to have stacks of business cards on my desk, and it always made me feel bad. I wasn't following up. I wasn't doing my work. But having piles of business cards doesn't really help you. What you're looking to do is to really connect with these people. And so I'm going to touch on follow-up now. As you may have noticed from the Trusted Advisor, follow-up is actually the second skill. And follow-up permeates most of the Trusted Advisor work. There's so much that's important about follow-up. And what we're talking about here is really the system that you're using for doing your business networking, right? A lot of people go to business networking events, and I hear a lot of people talk about, you should have a goal. You should have a goal for the business networking event. And what I really like for the goal to be for the business networking event is to pick 2 or 3 people that I'd like to have a further conversation with. That's, I go there intending to, talk to 10, 20, 30 people, however long the program is. But I'm really just looking for a few people that catch my interest that I want to follow up with. And so in this case, the follow-up, you get home from the business networking event, how do you follow up? You follow up with a one-on-one. That's really the cool secret about this work that we're doing, that the one-on-one is the way that you follow up with someone, right? You had an interesting conversation. Hey, let's sit down and have coffee, right? It's a very easy way. It's a very easy way of getting to know someone better. It's a very easy way of moving the relationship forward. So the pick 3 is just pick 3 people that you think might be interesting to talk to. Now, I want to run another poll and see how many business networking groups you currently belong to. So, part of this is going to business networking events, but give me a sense right now of kind of how many business networking events you go to in a particular week. That's good. You're all very busy networkers. That's excellent. Excellent. No, that's good work to be doing. And that's the thing, is as long as if you're going to the events already, then it can be very helpful to kind of know what the process is for the event. So we're going to these events, and you have business networking groups. When you're part of a business networking group, again, I was part of networking groups for a while, and the real secret about a networking group is that all the interesting stuff happens between the meetings, right? I know for myself that I had this sense early on when I was business networking and joining these business networking groups that my job was to just show up for each of the meetings, and then I was doing fine. And it wasn't until we started that clay pot that I really understood this secret, that the real power in the business networking groups are the relationships that you build up outside of the meeting. Right, and so I talk about a pick 3. When I go to a business networking event, I talk about a pick 3 kind of strategy. When I'm looking at a business networking group, something that you're meeting with on a continual basis, I actually like to do a pick 1 kind of strategy. So at each meeting, I pick one person that I think it'd be interesting to have a one-on-one with before the next meeting. So, if it's a weekly meeting, it's over that week. If it's a monthly meeting, it's sometime over the course of the month. And so you go to a networking event, you're looking to have 3 people to follow up with. You go to one of your business networking groups, a recurring group. You're looking for one person to follow up with, because then over the course of a few meetings, you start working your way through the group, right? And it doesn't mean you can't have more, right? If somebody calls you, you can have it. I'm not saying you can't have more than that, but from a marketing point of view, from a business networking point of view, from a not being overwhelmed kind of view, I think it's good to limit it a little bit. Like the goal of a networking event is to find 3 people. The goal of a group meeting is to pick one and just go ahead and meet with them, right, and see where things go. And another question. Oh, you guys are great with questions. Let's see, another question. What are we doing? Do I have to do one-on-ones? Well, I'm not going to force you to do one-on-ones, but you are really missing out on. You're really missing out on a big opportunity. If you're not doing the one-on-one, if you're not using the one-on-one as a particular follow-up, you're really missing out on a huge, huge opportunity to grow your business, right? That's, a lot of people go to the business networking event and they hand out cards and everything, but then they don't do anything afterwards. And I will say that I go to business networking events and I try to follow up with people and have one-on-ones with them, and sometimes they won't respond, right? I mean, sometimes you can't get people's attention, and so you move on. You go find someone else. You find someone else to network with, right? And that's part of building the trusted advisor network, right? If you want people in your advisor network who will return your calls and are interested in what you have to say. And so, if you pick someone to have a one-on-one with and they won't have a one-on-one with you, move on to someone else, or that was where it was. So I like to let people know that it's okay. Sometimes people won't respond, sometimes you don't get the kind of connection that you want, and that's just part of business networking. You learn about people, and maybe over the course of time, it'll happen, right? I mean, as I said, it took me about 2 years to get value coming out of kind of the first networking group that I was part of. Now I expect it to happen in more like 6 to 8 months, but I think that's still a reasonable expectation, right? Until you've met with people, 4, 5, 6 times and have a bunch of one-on-ones with them, it's hard to really get things moving. And so the kind of skills that we're talking about today are ways of making it happen faster, but business networking is still this kind of thing that grows over time. And I really don't go to business networking events if I'm only going to go once, because I don't find much value in that, right? I really want to be doing things that are happening over time, because that's the way you get to know people. That's the way you get to do one-on-ones. That's the way you can build these kinds of relationships. So that's, and again, from my point of view, I've had one-on-ones. I found my insurance agent that way. I've joined up with people on ski trips for that and signed up business on the ski trips. You just never know what the one-on-one is going to turn up for you. So it's a very it's a very cool kind of thing, and it's very clear, again, from a follow-up point of view, right? Like, I've been to a business networking event, now I'm having one-on-ones. Okay. So the first tip is kind of how to get into the one-on-one, how to get that started. Our second technique for today is called Tell Me More. And what we're talking about now is what's going on at the one-on-one. What are you actually trying to accomplish at the one-on-one? And again, for me, initially I thought I was selling, or I was being sold, or I couldn't really see around that kind of transactional model thinking. And what I'm suggesting today is that the way to think about it is that you're getting to know someone, right? You're sitting down over coffee to get to know someone better. And why do you want to get to know someone better? Well, you never know where the connections are going to come from. And there are kind of 2 techniques that go into play here. The first is icebreakers, right? A way of getting the conversation started. And one of the best icebreakers I've ever found, which you can use in almost any situation to get to, sometimes you sit down with someone and the conversation starts, and then that's fine. But if you're trying to figure out where to start the conversation, a great question is, how long have you been involved in this group, whatever networking group you met them in? And you can find out amazing things about people just from that simple question, right? How long have you been involved in this group? And they'll tell you how long they've been involved, how much they get out of it, or they just started, and what they're kind of hoping for. And it's really just a nice way of starting a conversation that's not necessarily a business conversation. It can go, it can become a business conversation, but it doesn't need to be offhand. So again, the icebreaker that I like to suggest to people is, how did you hear about this group? Another really good icebreaker is actually, what did you do last weekend, right? And people say, why would I ask someone a personal question like that? And you know what? The goal is to get to know someone. I signed up a lot of volunteers for my for my leadership program for high school juniors, because people say, what did you do last weekend? Well, we were doing training for this leadership program that I run. And it gives you something else to talk about, right? Maybe you like basketball, maybe you like skiing, maybe you went to Aruba, right? You never know where people are going to have gone. You never know what sorts of connections you're going to find just from who people are. And it's so interesting to me that once I kind of know who people are, they like skiing, or that they like taking vacations in Italy, or whatever it is, it helps me remember who they are, right? In terms of this, how do you remember people? How do you keep people in mind? When you know who people are, it's much easier to remember them. So really what we're talking about here is you're getting to know someone, and the hope is that this will lead to opportunities for referrals, right? I mean, you're hoping that they refer things to you, you refer things to them, but really the one-on-one is more about giving your elevator pitch, right? Because you want to give them a sentence that they can use for other people, right? You want to give something for them that they can hear someone say something and say, oh, you'd be a good referral for this person that I just met, right? So that's kind of you're trying to give them your elevator pitch, and you're trying to pull it out of them. And most people don't have such a great elevator pitch, and so what you really need to do is ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. How did you get involved in that? Can you give me a specific example of something that you've done to help people? Right? Because a lot of people's elevator pitches, you just get this kind of vague overview kind of stuff. And you're never going to refer someone based on this kind of vague overview. You want to know what people are actually doing. And it's really fun when you start talking to people about stuff they like doing, right? Stuff they're passionate about. And I do want to share one other tip here. It's kind of a bonus tip. Because sometimes we have a conversation and conversation just dies, right? Have you ever been in that situation where you're talking along and suddenly just kind of run out of things? And a great question to ask at that point is, so you've told me a little bit about what you do. Can you tell me what you love about what you do? And it's fun. I encourage you to use that sometime over the next week. It's just when a conversation stops, ask them what they love about what they do. And notice how their face lights up as they tell you. And notice how much more information you get about them as a person. Like it's a really nice, easy way of connecting with someone. Because they'll tell you it's amazing what happens. It's amazing how things can change. So anytime conversation kind of drags or conversation kind of stops, a really great thing to say is, what is it that you love about what you do? And so as we talk about the one-on-one, again, the goal of the one-on-one is really to get to know the other person. And in future webinars, we'll talk more about what you do with that information once you've got it, right? How you make referrals, how you do opportunity spotting for them. But what we're talking about today is really just having a conversation. And I had someone at a presentation I did recently who said she felt it was such a relief to know that business networking is really just about getting to know people, right? That's really what we're talking about today. The one-on-one is a chance to get to know someone, to see what they like, to see what they're interested in, and to see some sort of connection. So that's what the goal is, and that's where we come from the goal point of view. So we have two techniques. The first is pick three, and the second is tell me more as you're in the one-on-one. The third thing I'd like to talk about today is follow-up. And as I've said, there's a lot of follow-up. Follow-up is so important in so many ways about being a trusted advisor. And what we're talking about today, we had talked about, okay, so you go to a business networking event, and how do you follow up with people? You have a one-on-one. Okay, so you've had a one-on-one with people. How do you follow up with them, right? How do you kind of keep the relationship moving forward? This is a question I get all the time. How much follow-up is too much, but also, how do I follow up with someone, right? How do I follow up with someone and kind of keep the relationship going, keep it moving forward? And I don't work for an email newsletter company, but I do really recommend the email newsletters. I use it in my business a lot, and it's a great way. People are happy to be on an email list, and as long as you're providing value on some sort of, semi-regular basis, it's a chance for them to get to know you better, right? It seems like, I know when I started doing newsletters, it took me, 3 or 4 years ago, I started doing newsletters. It took me hours to put the thing together. And now I have a lot of different lists, a lot more people on the list. I write them much faster. So as with any discipline, it's really a nice way of staying to people. And as I talk to people, I say, when should I follow up? Saying, well, I'm on your email newsletter, so I'm keeping in touch with you anyway. So I really know that I'm keeping in front of people that way. So I recommend that kind of as a baseline. But what I really wanted to suggest today, so when I talk about follow-up today, what I really want to suggest is as you're reading newspapers, as you're watching TV, as you're reading articles online, to be thinking about who you've met these articles might be interesting to. And when I say this, I always get concerned, like, there's 400 people that I know. How am I going to get to all of them? And I want to really stress that it's not about following up with everyone all the time. And what I'd like to recommend, the discipline is that as you go through your week, and what I do is I try to find 2 things a week that I can send to someone. Right? It's not that I'm trying to update everyone every week. It's not that I'm trying to do all this stuff. It's just that, I watch the Phantom Gourmet a lot on TV, and they have a lot of restaurants, which are great customers of mine. And so, it's easy to send a note to them that says, hey, I saw you. Congratulations on being part of the Great 8, right? Congratulations on being part of the Phantom Gourmet. If it's just worth driving to. They have all sorts of awards they give out. And companies love seeing that. And I like to tell the story of a company called Yum Bunnies that I went to. I clipped out an article about her from the paper. She had just started up. She wasn't ready to sign up yet, but I clipped an article about her from the paper, mailed it to her. And a year later, I walked in, and she said, you're the one. You sent me the article. Give me an estimate. I'm ready to sign up. And so this kind of thing, people say, should I email things? I'm on blogs and all that. I recommend printing it. Stick it in the mail to someone. Like, it really makes much more of a statement to send somebody something through the mail. And again, we're not talking about huge volume. If you send 2 things a week, I really think that's a great way to start. But the discipline we're talking about with follow-up here is really just to think about it. And I mean, for an example, I did a presentation proposal for someone, and a little later someone sent me a networking for introverts kind of write-up, and it had some cute tips. And so I sent her, and so I put it in the mail to her and said, I know it doesn't sound like you're an introvert, but here are some tips you might like. And she responded instantly. Like the instant she got it, she was on the email with me, giving me all sorts of details about how the presentation was moving forward. So that's the kind of follow-up I like to suggest for people, and especially as you're meeting people. If you had 2 or 3 one-on-ones this week, as you're reading the newspaper or watching TV or listening, or reading articles or magazines, just be thinking about something you could give to that person that would be helpful to them, right? Just kind of keep the relationship going, and that's the thought. That's the kind of follow-up thing. So that's really what I like to talk about. LinkedIn and Twitter are also great ways of doing this. With kind of the next step, the first step is to cut things out and mail them to people. The next step is to get a Twitter account, and then when you find things of value to people, you can post them to Twitter, right? That's really what Twitter is good for. You present value propositions to people, and so to the extent that people are following you, to the extent that your prospects and customers follow you, this is a way of using Twitter, right? That you find a cool thing and you can tweet about it, and that really to me is the value in Twitter. But that to me is a more advanced thing. Like the first step is to kind of look in your environment and just notice the things that you're noticing, and think about who you could give that to that it would contribute value to them. That's the so the third thing we're talking about is follow-up in the context of the one-on-one, right? So we follow up from business networking event with the one-on-one. We follow up from the one-on-one with something of value to the person, so that they kind of keep you in mind, right? That's what trusted advisors are. You're somebody who's in mind, who you can have solutions to people. You notice things that are interesting to them. That's why they would tend to follow up with you, right? So following up with them helps them follow up with you. So that was the third tip. I want to go back now, just put this in context again, that what we're talking about is becoming a trusted advisor. And this idea of the two-sided coin, that to be a trusted advisor, you need to know other trusted advisors. And as we talk about things, I've mentioned a little bit how the elevator pitch fits in, right? You go to the business networking event, you use your elevator pitch to start the conversation. You follow up by creating a one-on-one, right? And then you follow up with a one-on-one by providing value. And then the opportunity spotting and referrals there are other webinars coming up on those we'll talk about in a minute. But those are other skills that you get. And again, we'll have 3 techniques you can use to get better at that. So that's kind of the process for business networking. And once you have this process in place, it's really a lot easier to keep track of the people you're meeting and how you're meeting them and what you want to be doing. So as we're talking, as most of you know, we're part of a program here called the Leadership Lunch. The upcoming webinars in June, we're talking about getting your prospects' attention. In July, we'll be back on the Trusted Advisor track, talking about professional referrals and kind of the overarching thing, turning prospects into customers, how you start conversations. So if you've gotten something out of this, I encourage you to sign up for the ones in the future. And we also have an archive available. So if you want to get to webinars from the past, that's all available at leadershiplunchwebinars.com. So just as we wrap up, what I'd like to do is launch a new poll now. Just please let me know, of the 3 strategies we talked about today, which one kind of meant the most to you. So was it pick 3, tell me more, follow-up? As you think about kind of helping in your business networking, which of those do you think will be most helpful to you? Excellent. Thank you very much. I appreciate your feedback as always. So as I wrap up, if you have any other questions, feel free to put them through. Again, today we were talking about one-on-ones, how to be more effective at a one-on-one. The 3 strategies are pick 3, tell me more, and follow-up. And what I want to do now is, as you're thinking about questions or thinking about stuff, I want to launch into the trap. And so the trap that people fall into, the story I like to tell is that I own this window cleaning franchise business, and it's cold call selling. So you walk down the street, every street and walk into every business and offer them an estimate. And about 5 months after I started, I had walked through my territory. I had been into every business. So I called the franchise in a panic saying, I'm done. That's my territory. I need more territory. Then they calmly told me that now my goal was to walk through the territory a second time. And I was terrified about that. I just had these visions of people throwing me out, like, no, you were just here. Why are you back? And what I didn't realize was that over the course of 5 months, businesses come and go, managers come and go, different people are staffing the front desk. The weather is different outside, so people are in a different mood. window cleaners come and go, so you might be walking in on someone this time who doesn't have a window cleaner who did have one last time. And the crazy thing for me was that when I walked down the street the second time, it was actually easier. Like, I liked the people who knew about me because I didn't need to tell them as much about me, right? People started to recognize me. And so now I've been through the territory 10 or 12 times, and each time through it just gets easier. Like, there's more and more opportunities, you meet more and more people, and again, you start to cherish the people who remember you. Oh, you were just in here. That's a good thing, right? They know who I am. They know I'm the person to call. And so how does this relate to one-on-ones? Well, I know a lot of people that say, well, I'm part of this networking group, and I've had one-on-ones with everyone, so I'm done. And this is the trap. This is the trap that stunts business growth, because when you've had one-on-one with someone, you have just started. You have just started the relationship. And I can't tell you how much I cherish some of the people that I've known for years that I have a one-on-one with quarterly, right? And every time we sit down for a one-on-one, in fact, these webinars came out of a one-on-one I had with someone. We've been building up a relationship over time, and just, we decided to try webinars, and things built off of that. So I really cherish these people that I talk to on a more regular basis. And so when you talk about one-on-ones, once you've had a one-on-one with everyone, start again, right? Because people are in a different space. They have new products coming out. They're thinking about different things. They're a little more sophisticated in what they're doing. You never know what may have changed or what volunteer opportunities they may be working on now. So what I really encourage people to do is to keep having one-on-ones, right? Having one-on-one isn't it, right? We talk about, you talk about having to go to multiple meetings, but it's also having multiple one-on-ones. And so the big trap that people fall into is thinking you've had a one-on-one, so you're done. And what I really encourage you, the strategy is to just keep calling people up and having one-on-ones, right? And you don't want to do it, you're not having a one-on-one every week, but once a quarter or twice a year or something is about the right amount of time. And you'll be amazed what sorts of opportunities come out of it. It's really a very exciting thing. So I encourage you to stay out of that trap. As you get to know people, you can get to know people more. The people can always surprise you, right? And, the people you're married to, you always learn more things about them. And so it's true in business as well. There's always more to learn. So I will stay quiet for a second now. If you have any more questions you'd like, feel free to put them in. Oh, great. We're almost out of time, but we have one question. How much follow-up is too much? And I do get this question a lot. Follow-up is only too much if you're following up about yourself. If you're following up about the other person, right? I mean, there's a guy I know who I network with who I call him about every 3 weeks with another lead for him. And he certainly doesn't feel like I'm following up too much with him, right? I mean, every time I call him, he's got a lead. And similarly, when people call me with value that way, I find that valuable. So the only reason you're concerned about following up being too much is that you're calling up to follow up on the proposal, or you're following up about something about you, rather than telling them about an article you saw, or telling them about something in their industry, or telling them something about one of their competitors. Right, what you really want to be doing is using the news to provide value when you follow up. And if you follow up for reasons other than the sales that you're trying to call, people will always bring the conversation back around to the sale, right? If you call with something about them, you'll find that you always get great information about the sale that you're working on. So that's a great question. Thank you for putting that in. And follow up. Calling people daily is kind of a lot, but you know what? If you had a lead from me every day, I'd be happy to hear from you every day. So that's kind of my feeling about follow up. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, everyone. There's a survey that's going to pop up when we're done, so please go ahead and fill that out. I value your feedback and to keep this relevant for you and interesting. And thank you very much for being on the call. I appreciate it, and I hope to see you next month. Thank you very much, everyone. Bye.